What's up, movie fans? Welcome to Men vs. Movies. In this special edition of The Rundown, I guess you could call this episode 6, or you could call it a one-off, whatever you want to call it. It's the show that I usually do live every now and then, talk about the latest happenings in the world of movies and whatnot, and stuff like that. So, like I said, this show is usually live, and we usually cover a variety of topics, but for this installment of The Rundown, it's going to be a little bit different. There's one topic that dropped today. Today is Wednesday, not Tuesday. Today is Wednesday, and we just found out that Junkie XL will no longer be scoring the Justice League film and will be replaced by Danny Elfman. Famed composer, he did the Batman '89 score, Spider-Man scores, a lot of Tim Burton's films. You've heard stuff from this guy. I mean, come on, let's be real here. So this is a very interesting topic to not only me, but some of the other people that I have on joining me today, because we are all huge film score fans. So I figured this would be a great way to open up some sort of debate here, talk about what we think of this happening, this replacement, you will, of Junkie XL with Danny Elfman. So, just introduce the two guys I have on with me today. I'll start with Brody. First of all, Brody and I are back in a video. It's exciting.
Hey.
We're talking about film scores. Brody, say hi to everyone.
Hi everyone, how's it going? I'm going to be drinking and also eating during this video. What are you going to do?
Like, it's okay. This is a more casual show, so it's not, it's whatever.
And
then, of course,
I
I had to invite him on. He's a fellow film score lover and just a really awesome guy. So, I mean, come on, Tyler Tompkins, I gotta have him on, right? We're gonna talk about this, right?
Yeah, come on, man. It was only a matter of time. I'm glad to finally be on this show, and I'm excited to talk about this topic because we're all going to have there's going to be some very diverse opinions on this matter.
Oh, yeah.
There will be, and you wouldn't necessarily think so, because you hear this and you're like, oh, sorry for the shakiness there. You hear this and you're like, whoa, Danny Elfman scoring the Justice League movie. That's pretty cool. But, given the fact that Hans Zimmer kind of has created this feel for the DCEU, and the DCEU feels a certain way, I tend to not think he's the best choice. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So yeah, like I said, Danny Elfman is now composing the Justice League film, and Tom Holkenberg, or Junkie XL, as many of you know him, actually released a statement on Twitter saying the following: "As my mentor Hans Zimmer told me, you haven't made it in Hollywood as a composer until you get replaced on a project. So I guess I finally graduated this week. It pains me to leave the project, but a big thanks to Zach for asking me to be a part of his vision, and I wish Danny, Joss, and Warner Brothers all the best with Justice League, Tom." So that was his statement that he made when I'm looking at this 18 minutes ago. Excuse me. So I just want to get your guys' quick thoughts on Junkie XL's statement really quick. Tyler, we'll start with you. What do you make of this statement? And I guess overall, just the initial aspect of Junkie XL leaving the project of Justice League to go on to other things.
Well, about a month ago, I wasn't looking forward to Justice League as much as I would have liked to have been. I love the trailer, but then I saw Wonder Woman, and I got a little bit more excited, but I still wanted to be apprehensive just because of how Batman v Superman turned out. And then after hearing the news today, I'm even more excited for Justice League because Danny Elfman is one of the best composers of all time. He's in my top 3 composers of all time.
Wow.
He's been behind some of the most iconic superhero themes of all time. The Spider-Man theme, which is my favorite superhero theme of all time, and just the entire score from those 3 movies. I love all of them. His work in the Batman movies, the Tim Burton Batman movies, were great too. And he also did some of the Age of Ultron, which was kind of overlooked. I like what he brought to that score, but he's kind of overshadowed, and I'm excited to see what he does. But it's very interesting that Joss Whedon kind of kicked Junkie XL out and brought in Danny Elfman because before we started this, we thought that, or at least I thought that Junkie XL left and decided to go do Tomb Raider and was just too busy to do this. So it's interesting that Joss is going with Danny.
Well, that was what I was about to ask you. Did you think that, this was an instance of just Junkie XL leaving? Like, just leaving to go do other things? Or is it starting to look more like he got kicked out because of the reshoots that are going to happen, Excuse me. And obviously, Joss Whedon has a great working relationship with Danny Elfman, as evident by his work on Age of Ultron. But just, do you think that has to do with it, or do you actually think that Junkie XL left on his own terms?
Well, after hearing that statement, I definitely think Joss had something to do with it. I don't think Junkie would just leave the Justice League movie.
Yeah, it sounds a little weird for him to just walk up and leave what could possibly be the greatest film he could work on in his career.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and at first, I did think he left, but I was just so excited that Danny Elfman was coming on. I was just accepting whatever I read. I was like, oh, okay, Junkie wants to leave, whatever. We have Danny Elfman. Who cares what Junkie wants to do? He's a great composer, but I just love Danny even more. And I'm sure Brody is going to kind of be on the same boat with me. I'm just excited to see what he brings, because everything we've heard so far from the movies in the DCU is, it's been Junkie for the most part. Junkie and Hans and Rupert, what's his name? Who just did Wonder Woman?
Rupert Gregson Williams.
Yeah, he just did that. So it'll be
and Stephen Price, who did Suicide Squad,
which is underrated.
Very true.
Yeah.
So it'll be kind of a change of pace, because Elfman's different from every single one of those composers. But if everything goes right, this could be the best DCU score yet. So
come on, Man of Steel now. Come on. All right, well, speaking of Brody, you brought him up. Brody, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that, Junkie XL got the boot by Mr. Whedon and gang, or do you think that he left on his own terms?
Absolutely, he got the boot. And I think this tells us a lot. I mean, because Danny Elfman was obviously brought, because he worked with Joss on Age of Ultron, so that sort of indicates that Joss had a lot of say over who to bring in. And also tells me that Joss is probably going to have a lot of say in post-production, a lot more say than I was expecting.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
So it looks like it's his movie now, essentially. He's basically taking the reins, which makes sense. He's got to put his name on it, so, I wouldn't want to just put my name on someone else's thing. But, so that's fair. And also, I couldn't be happier about this. I was super... I liked Batman v Superman, so I was like... And the music, I thought the music in Batman v Superman was great. Like, I don't know, I thought that was really, really good. There's a couple of really great tracks in there. Obviously, Wonder Woman's theme is great, and they've incorporated that into Wonder Woman now. But I was, kind of hesitant, because from what I read, a lot of the stuff that I liked about Batman v Superman score, and a lot of the stuff I liked about Man of Steel score especially, was Hans. It was, just from, what I've read, that he was the chief architect of that stuff.
But in Batman versus Superman, the Batman score, I think, was primarily Junkie, if I'm not mistaken, right?
But my favorite part of the Batman theme from Batman v Superman was Beautiful Lie, which was definitely Hans. So
that was definitely Hans. But you didn't like the bomb.
Oh no, I like it. It's fine.
That was really reminiscent of the animated series type stuff.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. But you know what the animated series is reminiscent of? Danny Elfman's theme score from the 80s. So so let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But no, but I think I was really worried going into Justice League. I was like, Hans already struggles with coming up with sort of. I was mentioning this when I texted you. I think when it comes to Hans's style, Hans does not do melody. That's just not his thing, really. He can do melody, but a lot of his work sort of is centered around a lot of percussion, that sort of thing. And I don't know if I don't know if I would characterize him as a John Williams kind of just sweeping strings kind of composer. But so I would say Danny Elfman is definitely more in that family. And that's what I wanted for Justice League. I was like, I want the Justice League to have this big, heroic theme. Just like the Avengers got, just like, every superhero before this, modern era got. You know what I mean? And I just didn't think Junkie was going to be able to do that. Junkie's a good composer. It does really good stuff. But, you listen to Mad Max and you listen to, his work on Batman v Superman. It's kind of just not what I would think of when I think of a Justice League theme.
So then I guess the next logical thing to ask here for both of you would be, how do you feel about the option to bring on Danny Elfman? I mean, they could have brought on anyone. They could have brought on Rupert Gregson Williams, who just did Wonder Woman, Stephen Price, who did Suicide Squad last year. Clearly Hans Zimmer was out of the question because he stated he's done with superhero films. So how do you feel with them bringing on Danny Elfman? Tyler, we'll start with you.
Why not Brian Tyler?
I was waiting for the Brian Tyler joke.
I was waiting for you to make it, man. But no, Dan Elfman. I mean, if you really think about it, he's the best possible choice to bring on. You know, aside from the ones you mentioned.
Usually, yeah.
Reaching out to any other. I mean, he has experience. He has a lot of experience with this. He obviously hasn't done any superhero themes in a long time, aside from Age of Ultron, the last big one he did. You know, was Spider-Man. But this is what I think. This is what the DCU needs, and I think this is going to be one of the standouts from the entire movie. And it also goes to show, too. Again, I think Brody mentioned this. Is how much power Joss Whedon actually has. I didn't really expect him to be able to choose who composes the score, because the score, it's an important part to the movie. Without this Danny Elfman score for the Spider-Man movies, I would not like it as much. I mean, that's how much of an impact his score has on those movies. And obviously other movies too, aside from his superhero scores, Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, and just a lot of other scores he's done. I think this is going to play a key part in what makes this movie very good. Hopefully. Hopefully it's good.
Right. I mean, for sure. I mean, like, there is no doubt Danny Elfman is a phenomenal composer. He's one of the best. I mean, he is a living legend as far as, like, film scores go. It's just, for me personally, I just don't think he's the right fit, if you will. There's other people I think that would have been better suited for this than Danny Elfman, just given his style per se. I'll get into that a little bit later, but Brody, I want to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what Tyler was saying. I think he's one of the, like, I'm trying to think. When I think of, like, a superhero score, because that's what we're talking about here, the first thing that comes to mind is watching the original Spider-Man and have, like, the Marvel Comics, like, logo, and then you hear, like, the and, like, the Spider-Man theme. That's, like, one of my favorite memories as a child. And that's purely because of Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman created that, because otherwise it's just a fucking logo, which isn't too compelling. And, I don't know, he's just such a master. And then, Batman 89, I think the reason that movie works, because that movie does have a lot of problems, I think the reason that movie works is because of Danny Elfman. Like, that just ties everything together so perfectly.
So you're saying Danny Elfman is the sole reason why
Not the sole reason.
Raimi Spider-Man
No. I'm talking about like the Tim Burton Batman, the original one. I think the reason that movie, it's the glue that holds that movie together. I should say because I mean, obviously Michael Keaton's great, Jack Nicholson's great, Tim Burton's got a good directorial vision, but I think the reason that movie works so well is because of the score. It sets the tone. It amplifies the art design of Gotham. It just it works on so many levels. And I think that's just the kind of composer he is. And I was gonna say, you're worried about like how it won't fit in with I guess Hans Zimmer's style. And I can see that. But,
well, I was going to get to that, but you can go ahead and fight me on it first.
I mean, you go first, because I want to counter your point, but I can't counter it unless
you just want to argue with me. Tyler, it's this debate show that we're already getting the ball rolling on. This is the first installment, basically. No, what I was going to say is, like I said, there's no question. Danny Elfman's a great composer. You mentioned Spider-Man. You mentioned Batman. I mean, those are two that come to mind right off the bat. I mean, The Nightmare Before Christmas. The guy is a phenomenal composer. But you look at his style, and he's got a very distinct style. You can always tell when Danny Elfman is doing a film. I mean, that he's got a signature style, which, cool, works for the dude.
Yeah.
I just don't think, given the aesthetic of the DCEU and what Hans Zimmer has set up for the tone of the music and their themes, I don't think that Danny Elfman fits in here too well. His style is almost slightly fantastical, if you will. It's like a dark fantastical in a way, and it's something that you'll listen to, and it's like it almost feels kind of like marvelous. It's a weird word that comes to mind, but that's what I think of. And for that reason, it just doesn't blend well. And then you also look at someone like Junkie XL. The guy has worked on both Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. He was actually credited as a co-composer on Batman vs. Superman, but on Man of Steel, he actually composed some of the more action-y tracks, and actually the track with Zod's a little motif, and then also the track called Arcade, which then kind of was reused in Batman vs. Superman. So he had a hand in Man of Steel, as well as, obviously Batman vs. Superman. So I think he has a grasp on the feel for the music for these films. He obviously has worked close with Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer clearly likes Junkie, otherwise he wouldn't have had him brought on as a co-composer here. And so I feel like, since Junkie has kind of been able to get inside the head of Hans Zimmer a little bit, that he would have been able to bring some of the Zimmerness to the film. I mean, you listen to Junkie XL, and his style is very Zimmer-esque. I mean, he's a student. It's just a little bit more punctual and percussive, I would say. And I feel like just what they were able to do with the score for Batman vs. Superman, Batman's theme, Wonder Woman's theme, the theme for Superman from Man of Steel, which is hands down one of the greatest superhero scores, and scores in general to have come out in the last decade. I will stand by that. Danny Elfman just doesn't fit there for me. I like I said, I love him to death. I almost would have rather have seen Stephen Price or Rupert Gregson Williams take on the film instead of Danny Elfman, just because I feel what Stephen Price did with Suicide Squad, it was different, and it was very much a Stephen Price score, but it also kind of was in the same realm as what Hans and Junkie have established. And then also you look at something like Rupert Gregson Williams' score for Wonder Woman. Let's just be honest here, the guy knocked it out of the park, and it was absolutely unbelievable, and he actually utilized the Wonder Woman score really, really well. He was able to modernize what would have been kind of a period score, which is just phenomenal. So I almost would have rather have seen one of those two take it on. Curious to see what Danny Elfman brings, but like I said, I'm not buying it right now, and I'm a little upset that they kicked out Junkie XL for that, because that's what I feel is what happened. I feel like Junkie got kicked out.
No doubt.
And I don't like that, because I just... It was almost like he was there first, so it's kind of like, let him do Justice League and then decide whether you want to bring him on again or not. I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. Brody, we'll go back to you for your rebuttal, I guess.
My rebuttal? So I think the way I look at it, Danny Elfman's going to bring something... Obviously, he's going to be different, right? I don't think he's quite as... Like, you were describing sort of a whimsical sound. I think it's more of his Tim Burton stuff, which, granted, is like mostly what he does now. So it's kind of hard to disassociate him with that. But I don't think that's all he's capable of doing. And I think...
Well, I mean, it's not. You're right. I mean, like, he's done scores like Wanted and, like, Terminator Salvation and stuff like that. I mean, you're right. He's done non-Tim Burton-esque stuff.
But he definitely is... I know what you mean. He definitely is more, like, sort of operatic and, like, theatrical. And so...
Yes, beautiful.
And so I think... But I think it's a good thing. I think it's almost better for Justice League, because in terms of like the arc that we're going on with these three movies, with Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Justice League, this is sort of like the last movie in that trilogy that sets up the rest of the DCEU. And so we're going from like this really dark, grounded, very self-serious almost tone. We took it to its most natural conclusion in Batman vs. Superman, and now we're coming out of that and we're going into the fantastical, now we got Aquaman and Wonder Woman and like, Darkseid and all this like crazy shit going on. And I think that almost demands a shift in tone musically as well. And I think Danny Elfman's perfectly capable of doing that. And not only that, I think it would be a disservice to the DCU as a whole. Like it's symphonic language, if like, to coin a weird pretentious term. I think it would be a disservice to that to sort of just say, let's just ape everything that Hans Zimmer did for the rest of this universe. I don't think that's like necessary. And if we could get a bunch of students of Hans Zimmer to do more scores, and we would sound just like Hans Zimmer, and that'd be fine. But I guess like Danny Elfman kind of is the closest I could think of in terms of like closest to Hans Zimmer in terms of like just experience. Like he's one of those like old rocker kind of people who became a film composer, and I feel like that's almost like just as good. I don't know. In my mind, I just make that connection where like he was like what was the band he was in? He was like Oogie Boogie or something like that, and Hans Zimmer was in the fucking... What was the one, the Video Killed the Radio Star? He was in that one. I just feel like he's of that same breed of film composer. He's just different, and I think that the difference that he brings is actually going to be beneficial for the rest of the universe, and especially for Justice League. Because we want our Justice League to be big and epic. and doesn't have to necessarily be as grounded as Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman were. So, yeah, I think it's going to set a nice tone. But that's all I have
add
to
on
say.
to that, I was
Oh, yeah.
literally going to say the exact same thing. It was nice to get Hans Zimmer to introduce Man of Steel. That was great. And then to bring Junkie XL in for Batman v Superman totally fits his style, like Mad Max Fury Road, that really dark kind of style. It's very suiting for him. And then,
Yep.
like you said, Justice League, this is the final arc of the trilogy, as you were saying, and I think Elfman, like you said, is going to set the tone for the rest of the DCU, because even Rupert Gregson-Williams' score for Wonder Woman was quite different from, Junkie XL and everything. It was much more lighter in tone. It was still, not super light, but I think this is a good direction for the DCU, and I hope Danny Elfman comes back for other future movies in the franchise if it turns out to be good.
I don't know, man. Like, I got to see what he does with Justice League first. I mean, obviously, Danny Elfman's a great tool to have in your tool belt. He's a great asset for the DCEU. I could even see him being a good fit for the Flash.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing that out there. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't know, man. It's not Zimmer, and I feel like Junkie would have carried on the Zimmerness of this extended universe. So I don't know, those are my thoughts on that, and those are your guys' thoughts on that too. So thanks for joining me in this episode of The Rundown, this special Danny Elfman centric episode. Did you have fun discussing the Elfman?
Yeah, I did. But speaking of Flash, I wouldn't be, with as many production issues that movie's gone through, I wouldn't be surprised if Danny Elfman directs that movie.
Hey, you know what? Danny Elfman is now the voice of the Flash, and it's going to be a musical. He's going to sing. It's going to be basically the Nightmare Before Christmas, only live action version.
Sounds incredible.
And all that stuff. But awesome, cool. Thanks, guys, for joining me on this edition of The Rundown. Go check out Tyler's YouTube channel if you want to hear some more about him. Tyler, I'll give you a second to plug yourself here.
Yeah, search Tyler Tompkins. I do everything Griffin does: movie reviews, TV reviews, Blu-ray videos. Come check it out. If you like it, subscribe.
Hey, there you go. And then we also got Mr. Brody, the Aussie. He's back.
Oh.
I'm so happy. This is
So
great.
happy.
This is
great.
This is good stuff.
This is
here.
very nice.
This is good stuff.
Feels good.
Where can everyone
For me.
find you, Brody?
Well, you can find me on my somewhat active Twitter, which is
You're someone.
Brody Cervelli, at Brody Cervelli. Go ahead, do that.
There we go. All right, I'll throw something up there. Who knows? But anyways, guys, if you like this video, be sure to like it, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got movie reviews, talk shows, all sorts of great stuff on Men vs. Movies. Check it out. I'm sure you'll find something you like. Then you can also like Men vs. Movies on Facebook and follow us on Twitter simply by searching Men v Movies. And lastly, guys, if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can always give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. And that's going to do it for this installment of The Rundown. We'll catch you next time. Take care.